God didn't say, go into the world, all you who are trained or eloquent in speech. He just said for all of us. But you know what he said was the source of our joy comes from sharing our faith, and most people don't understand that. That parable of the fig tree, his last parable, he said, when you bear fruit, then you're my disciple, and therein my joy remain with you, and your joy will remain full. So when you share your faith, I learned this back in the 70s. I was happy, but I didn't have joy. Yeah. And I'd met some people that were really joyful to realize they were sharing their faith all over the place. So it's tied directly to that. And let me tell you why. It is another totally misunderstood scripture. The one we all know, Romans 8:28, all things work together for good.
Sure.
Well, we don't complete the whole scripture. Every sermon you hear on is when you love God with your whole heart, but they don't get this last part. To those who love God with their whole heart, to those who live their lives for my purpose. His purpose is seek and save the lost. So when we seek and save the lost, we say in our ministry, move everybody every day closer to Jesus. When we live to reach everybody, that's our mission in life above our job and everything else. I built a whole business, but my business has been secondary to my goal is I want to move everybody closer to Jesus. When you do that, then he said, and we live in the promise of, I'll make everything in your life work together for good. That's the end of worry. And that's the beginning of lifetime joy. And so no matter when the bad stuff happens, I've had horrible stuff happen to me. I've lost a daughter 2 years ago, as you well know. Mm-hmm. I had my business being ripped out of me. The next morning, my joint venture partner was going to take my business from me. I was in the hospital. I was dying. I had joy. Without question, everyone. You know why? Every time I said, God, I ask you for nothing because of two things. You know I live for your purpose, and I know you keep your word. And it's just been watching to see. It's like, I can't wait to see how you're going to get us out of this one, God. But when you live in that experience, and then you live in the continuing experience just coming off of sharing with somebody, and God just used you to move somebody closer to him, the joy of that, knowing God just used you, the intimacy with God that comes from knowing that was a divine experience right then, thrills you. It gives you a bounce yourself you can't get any other way. So that's where real joy comes from. But most Christians aren't doing that. They're living in fear. 80% of Christians are living in fear. If you live in fear, you don't have faith. If you don't have faith, you can't share your faith. So Satan sterilizes.
That makes sense.
He basically sterilizes, to complete that thought. He sterilizes. We can't reproduce because we're trapped in fear. Over 80% of our listeners right now are living in fear. And the way to get out of that fear is to start sharing that whatever knowledge you have, just love on people. You don't have to be trained. It's the easiest thing in the world. He sets up the appointments and he gives you the words to say. You don't have to do anything but show up.
Revival Outside the Walls, Ignite America. Barry Meguiar joining us today here on the Meeting House on Faith Radio. It's the 2022 National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Nashville. So, Barry, it's something you said, and I think it bears repeating and maybe camping out on for just a moment, because I think there may be a human tendency, maybe even conventional wisdom, that would say, well, I'm going to wait. I'm going to try to make things better, or I'm even going to trust God that things are going to be better. I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to grow spiritually. I'm not equipped. I'm not worthy enough to share. So, in other words, we're going to wait on something to happen, and we're going to wait to achieve this level of spirituality, and then we share our faith.
You just described 90% of the people
and
listening to us right
and
now.
It sounds sounds like to me what you're saying is you share what you got.
In fact, when you're in darkness, when you're in the midst of the problem, your testimony's never been stronger. My smile and my joy was never stronger than when I was dying in the hospital. They expect me. Barry Meguiar's got a car accident. He's got cool cars. He's top of the world. Of course, he'd smile. When I was dying, when I lost my daughter, and I spoke at the funeral, and 9,000 people have watched the video of Nicole Meguiar's celebration of life service. You know why? It showed faith under fire, and it showed my joy. And people accepted the Lord at her celebration of life service. I don't know how many cents just from the video. You use the bad times. Yeah. The light is brightest in the darkness, and the darker this world gets, the easier it is to share our love for Jesus and the comfort we have in Him.